Welcome to Shop Talk by Elevated Stylist with your hosts Sonia and Jody. We're here to bring you open and honest conversations, education, tools, and opportunities to learn and grow. Shop Talk is the junction of hair, business, and wellness, where we literally talk shop, featuring guests, coaches, experts, and thought leaders in the hair industry. Be sure to join us for new weekly episodes.
Hello and welcome to another Shop Talk episode. I'm Jody.
And I'm Sonia.
And today we are talking about all the do's and don'ts of hiring, firing, and onboarding. So we thought that it would be great to take this episode and give you some juicy, valuable tips on the ins and outs of hiring and firing, because I think a lot of people are just kind of doing it off what they're seeing or what they've been told, or just kind of doing it on a whim. And I think we, sometimes need a little bit of guidance when it comes to these things. So these are a lot of things that we include in our Salon Blueprint. So we want to just dive in and get started.
Yeah. And one of the things I think, like in the last episode, we talked about how to attract the right talent. And the next step to attracting the right talent is to interview them. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I think that we all kind of like search templates and things to like talk about and not talk about. And I've experienced it myself. And I know you've experienced it in the past, where we just kind of throw shit against the wall and see if it works.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of do this in a way of, I'm going to ask Jody what she thinks is the do's and the don'ts of interviewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think one of the do's is like we were talking in the last episode, is putting out that really nice job posting that describes some of your values and what is expected and what you're offering. That is like what's going to attract the right people. So hopefully these are some of the people that you're having in for a phone interview. So something that we have learned our lesson on is always having a phone interview first, because I can't tell you how many times we have set up like 5 interviews and 2 of them have showed up. It unfortunately is just something that happens, and we have to just be okay with it. So doing the phone interview first, it really helps to kind of save time on, not going into the salon or not going to that cafe and sitting there for a half an hour waiting for your next one to show up. So doing the phone interview really helps to kind of, that's your segue. That's your like, how do they sound? Are they bubbly? Do they have energy? Are they respectful on the phone? Like, you really get to see their mannerisms, the way they pick up the phone, and then like asking them more or less like, who are you? What do you like to do? Kind of get to know them on the phone. It's kind of like speed dating, but it also allows you to see like, are they showing up for this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Mm-hmm. Hey, what do you think are the don'ts?
The don'ts definitely are, when you're doing some of those phone interviews, if you feel like the person is abrasive, if you're like, so Sonia and I have this like saying where it's like, if it's a maybe, it's a no. So that is one of our biggest things, is like, if it's not a full body yes, then don't do it. Because I can't tell you how many times we have hired on a maybe and we're like, but there's this and that, but there's this always bites us in the ass every freaking time. And it might not be the first week that they're there. It might not be the first month that they're there, but down the line, that maybe is against your values. The maybe is against your intuition and your gut feeling. That is one of our biggest don'ts, is like, if it's a maybe, it's a no. So wait for that full body yes. It is worth it every time. Maybe you have to do 6 or 7 interviews, but the yes will always come eventually, and it's worth it every time.
Oh, yes, I always remember that.
Yeah. What are some of your interview questions that you like? Like, I know that we like to kind of break it down into like personality. We like to break it down into like work ethic. And then we kind of go into a little bit of psychiatry.
Yeah.
Psychiatry?
Like psychology.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Not casual.
I like to use a couple of questions, and I'm going to pull them up, and I'll give you guys a few of them. It kind of, you really want to get to know their character, and that's what's really important for me is getting to know somebody's character. And one of the questions I like to ask is, how do you handle difficult situations, difficult conversations? Um, I don't think that a lot of people know how to answer that question. So I always want to know how people answer that question, because if they say, "Oh, well, I'll just like pull them aside and I'll just have a chat with them," and it's like, yeah, you'll pull them aside, but like, how will you chat with them? That's what's important to me, because I want to understand who they are as a person and how they approach people.
Yeah, because you really, if they can't answer a difficult question, usually they can't handle a difficult situation.
Yeah. Another one that I like is tell me a moment in your life that helped shift your perspective and changed you as a person. I think that I'm just a very introspective person by nature, and I like to invite people to get to that point because I want to know if the person that we're hiring has self-awareness, and that is something that's very, very important for us, because if you don't have self-awareness, there's no opportunity for growth. If someone's very much stuck in the surface plane of their mind, then it's going to really be really hard for us to break through to help them grow to the next level. And that's what you need. You need awareness to grow. And so I ask a lot of questions around that really kind of, a lot of people don't expect it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't expect that question.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say like a hot tip is like you can always train technically, but you cannot change somebody's foundation. You cannot change somebody's character, their personality. That's something that really you personally can't change. They can change it, but you can't change that. You can always train for technique.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't train for personality. That's just,
No,
they come
no.
to you as they are.
Yeah, yeah. You can't save anybody, just FYI.
Yeah. And like there's a myriad of questions that we have, like, and in the blueprint we give you like literally this cheat sheet of all of these questions.
Mhm.
There's like, I don't know, 60 or 70 of them, and you just cherry pick. Cherry
Yeah,
pick
you
two
choose.
or three. Like, keep the interview like impactful,
Mhm.
Keep it impactful, but also the one thing that I'm gonna jump and say a don't. A don't is, don't ask yes or no questions.
Yeah.
Don't ask like, do you love hair? Like, obviously they're gonna say yes. And if they say no, then they're in trouble. Like, don't ask yes or no questions. Ask open-ended questions. That's gonna actually lead you somewhere. It's gonna help you understand their thought process, understand who they are as a person, how they communicate, what their verbiage is. Like,
Yeah.
how are they? It's yes or no questions will leave you with yes and no answers, and
Yeah.
will lead you nowhere.
Yeah. And bring your values in. Bring your values into each and every interview and make sure that you're describing the values, like, and get them to reiterate it to you. What do you, so one of ours is respect, and respect can be so broad, but we have really like narrowed it down to how we respect each other and how we respect the salon. And we explain it to them in the interview, and then we ask them to explain what they think respect is one on one and as an environment. And that really helps us to see like the understanding of the values. Do they understand what a value is? And do they align with it? It's something that we always say we hire and fire for our values.
Yeah, absolutely. Without the values, like, you're just asking like just basic questions,
Yeah.
And I would say another don't is like, don't ask them what their 10-year plan is. Like, nobody knows. Don't ask
Nobody
them what their
knows.
5-year plan is. Don't ask them what
No.
their 10-year plan is. Like, nobody knows.
And it kind of puts them in a weird position. What if they want to open a salon in 5 years? It's not a great thing to lead with in an interview. And, like that's not really up to us, like what they're doing in 5 years. Like, ask them, like, what they want to learn this year. Like that's a better question. Like, what new technique do you want to learn this year?
Yeah.
What new business behind your chair do you want to learn this year? What are you struggling with? Like, like those are good questions to see. Like, does somebody have a plan on growth behind their chair this year? Not like, in general blanket statement, what are you doing in your next
Yeah,
5 years?
exactly. And like also too, and then in the blueprint, it's the questions that we ask are not specifically just for hairstylists. Like you can use a lot of the questions for hiring receptionists and assistants and managers and things like that. Just cherry pick which ones that really resonate and like, switch them around or like have fun with it. Like really figure out what it is you want out of this person, aka your values, and then use those values to interview the person. That's basically how we've been able to siphon through all of the people. Because like when you have a great environment, obviously there's going to be so many people that want to work with you, but you have the upper hand to cherry pick, to be like, you know what, I'm going to interview these people, and if none of them work out, then none of them work out.
Yeah.
You just have to wait for the right person. And like I'm a very strong believer in like wait for the right people to come.
Yeah, for sure. And then moving on to like after we've hired these amazing people or this amazing person, we need to set them up for success. We cannot just throw them into the deep end and expect them to thrive. We really need to set them up in a way that they feel comfortable, they feel motivated, they feel, you know, like
Supported.
they're supported and that they understand what is expected of them. Because this is a lot of the time the fault of the owner and the person hiring. It's like we don't tell them what is expected of them. So then they're just grasping, they're guessing, and we're saying, "Oh, no, we actually need this from you." And they're like, "Well, you never told me that." Going back to if it's not written, it's not told. So this is where our handbook, our policies and procedures, which is all covered in the blueprint as well. So if you don't have a handbook, if you don't have a policies and procedures book, it is something else that we cover really, really
In depth.
in depth, thank you, in the blueprint. But yeah, bringing that into your onboarding. So we always say like really invest in an hour or two in onboarding. Sit with them, get them to read the handbook to you. Don't say take this home at night and read it and sign it, because they are not going to read it. They're just going to sign it. They're going to skim and they're going to sign it. But it's really sitting with them, because I can sit and say with every single one of my employees and say, remember when we read the handbook together? Remember this part about the dress code? Remember when we did that? And they're going to say yes. Okay, so do you think we're living into that? So it's a really great part, and then they can ask you questions about what's expected of them too, so that they have understanding, because maybe they're reading something and they're like, yeah, I don't really get that. So you have that time to really explain the expectations, going through like all the duties, opening and closing duties that they need to do, going through like what's expected of them, how much education you need them to do every year, phone breaks, when we do your hair. Like these are the things that we want to make sure that they are knowing when we're onboarding them. And then taking them around the salon, take them on a cruise, like make sure they know what's in each cupboard, how do you do laundry, how so that they're not just standing in the corner in their first week being like, I have no clue what to do. Bring them through the process. Like every morning, this is what we do. When you're not busy, we rip foils, we sweep the floors, we do dishes, we do laundry. Like make sure that they have these checklists with them, so that you're setting them up for success, so they don't feel like frozen in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because that's what happens a lot of the times. And people are shy when they first start something. So it's like if you don't take them around and introduce them to everybody and introduce them to like the environment that they're going to be working in for the next however long, they're just gonna kind of stand around and then get lost in the environment of people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the don'ts I would say is don't start an onboarding unprepared. Be prepared. Get all of your ducks in a row. Like we have a checklist of a smooth operating onboarding that we do every single time with every single person. And in that checklist has links to all of the documents that we have for the onboarding, documents for the new employee form, documents for the contract, documents for whatever you need them to sign and whatever you need them to read. we have those things prepared, because for you to go in there the day before and try to gather everything, and you're going to miss things. And then you're going to be like, oh shit, I didn't tell the person about this. Oh shit, I didn't tell them about this. And that's what happens, is you start to like train in passing. And that's how you get sloppy employees. And that's how things get sloppy in the salon. And yes, there's a lot of information and they won't be able to retain it all. But when you have that checklist, you can always go back on it. Yeah. And be like, okay, well, we're going to recover this because maybe it was a lot of information. Let's go back and reassess how the opening duties are and how the closing duties are. And this will also, what this does is it helps you pass this on to a manager. Yeah. When you're ready to hire a manager, then you're like, okay, manager, this is the steps that you follow. These are the successes that we've had. It also allows you to check in and be like, is this successful? Did I miss anything? Or is there anything I can remove or add to this checklist? And that's what's really helped us make this kind of onboarding, which is the most tedious part. Nobody loves doing it. Yeah. It's not fun. You can make it fun. I had fun the last few times that I did it. I was like, oh, let's have a freaking blast doing this.
Yeah. I always get a treatment and a blow dry whenever I onboard, because we get them to do head massages. I want to see where your head massage is. You know, like it's something that's important. So I always make sure I get something out of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Get them to be like interactive in the salon, like get them to be a part of the salon in that onboarding. And one thing I always like to do is have this connection, this ongoing touch base after I do each section. I'm like, okay, is there anything that you didn't understand in this section that we need to recover? If this is now the time, speak now or forever hold your peace. Because like we have to move on to the next section. And that's just a way of like kind of controlling the time, but also giving the other person time to connect back with you.
Yeah. And then get your contracts. Like make sure you have your contracts in order. Make sure that, you know, you have all of that ready to go, because having a binding contract is something that really helps with our next portion. It will help, you know, what they're being paid, what their expectations, but also termination. When you're able to, if you're able to terminate them, do they have a 6-month probation? Do they get terminated without cause? Do they get terminated with pay, without pay? Like all these things are super important for not only the longevity of their career at your business, but also what if we come into a situation where we do need to release this person? We need to make sure that as salon owners or managers that we're covering our butts. You know, we need to make sure that we know the process of letting go of an employee that maybe got through the cracks. You know, we always have them. We can do these amazing interviews. We can do this amazing onboarding, but people change, circumstances change, or, you know, people can say all the right things and slip through the cracks and then be working for a couple months and it's just really not working out. So we need to really have these processes in order to make sure that we feel like we have freedom within our business, that we're not handcuffed to these people that we've like hired on, because one person can sink a ship. We've dealt with this before, and it only takes one person to be negative within your walls, and it can influence the rest of the team. It can influence the energy. It can bring tension. It's not fun. So we need to make sure that we understand the offboarding process as well as the onboarding.
Yeah, and the don'ts that you don't want to do is you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be confrontational.
No.
You don't want to be disrespectful. You don't want to be reactive, like on the fly, like you're fired, get out of here. Like those types of things that we've experienced personally and also have done as salon owners. Not proud of it, but I mean, we didn't know anything better.
Yeah, we'll admit to our flaws.
Our faults, but
yeah.
Those are the types of things, and that's where, like, when you know the employment laws and acts within the city that you live in, the jurisdiction that you live in, it's very, very important that you educate yourself on the Employment Act, because everywhere is different. In Canada, we protect the employee probably way more than the employer, just like we protect the tenants more than the landlords. That's how it kind of works in Canada, but figure out what it is in your state or your country, your city, wherever you are. And that will give you the right ammunition to create a contract, will help you. Otherwise, you can hire an HR company and a lawyer, and they can figure that out for you too. That's the easy route. But definitely be prepared when you're ready to offboard somebody, and follow the same procedure as you do for everybody else. And one thing that we've just recently been doing in the last, I would say, a couple years is offboarding in a very kind, compassionate way.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are some of our do's.
Yeah.
Our do's are like, give them a chance first. Have a little sit down touch base and say, you know what? This is going to be a verbal warning. I just want to let you know that we're sitting down, we're having a verbal warning, because these are some of the things that we've been noticing. And these are some of the things that aren't aligning with our culture. So having these open conversations, this is something that, you know, is being very disrespectful for the team or the environment, yada, yada, whatever it is. You have it written out, dated, and we email it. We always want a paper trail of what we're doing. So we always want to make sure that we're giving them a chance to be like, listen, I don't know what's going on. Is everything okay? But this is something that we're noticing, and it can't go on any further. So this is your first written notice. And then going on, if nothing improves within, you know, a couple weeks or a month, then it's more or less like sitting down. Sorry, that was a verbal warning. Then you have a written warning, and your written warning can be as passive or aggressive as, this is your written warning. I'm going to email it to you. Please sign it. Or you can do something called a performance improvement. That's the more aggressive way. And that's something like, you know, they've done something where you're like, this is your absolute last chance and you have 30 days to improve, or you're going to be terminated. And just making sure that you have all these things in place, because a lot of the times, you know, people can come back on you. They can do wrongful dismissal. They can come back with a bunch of different legalities that you don't really want to deal with. And making sure that you have everything done in a legal, proper way just really helps them to see the importance and the severity of how, you know, you treat your culture, and how you make sure that you're standing beside what is expected and what you've put out. Like, this is what we expect from you. This is what you're not delivering. And this is how we're dealing with it. So it really lets them to know that you're serious about this subject and it's important to the culture. And then, you know, if it doesn't work out, then it's something that you just need to release them, because making it okay for people to act in a way that goes against your culture, it is telling the rest of the team that this person's allowed to do it, but you're not, you know, because this person is confrontational or difficult, or, you know, has a million different excuses. It's okay for them to do it, but you guys can't. So it's really, really important to make sure that you stick to your guns, stick to your culture, stick to your values, and don't let people away with things. Don't let people who need to be let go not let go because you're afraid to have difficult conversations.
Yeah, and that's why we hire and fire by the values.
Yes.
It's like literally almost like everybody in our team knows it. It's like hire and fire by the values.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for more information on this kind of stuff, check out the Blueprint. It's a very juicy 4-module course. We'll leave all the information in the show notes. It is a self-paced course, so you can go at it at your own pace. I know salon ownership is very time consuming, so you can do one module at a time, let it sink in, let it like marinate, and then go on to the next module. And there's a lot of like information along the way. And we're always here to connect through Instagram and through email and through podcasts. So thank you for tuning in. And stay tuned for more episodes like this.
Join the party on our social channels. And if you have any questions, you can reach out via email at hello@elevatedstylist.com. We'd love to hear from you.